Welcome back, y'all. So as I said, this is going to be a video on the top 5 things I don't like about the 2003 2004 SVT Terminator Cobra. So where do we start? Well, I'm going to reference this as if you have the IRS still, because I don't think it's fair to judge the car how the car handles right now. Mine does ride rough because I've got solid bushings and solid spherical bushings in the rear end with a solid axle. That's not fair. That's not how the car was designed. So basing it off the IRS and a few other things. So number 5, as reference to, like, if you were to only could add one car and you were trying to own one of these, by today's standards, number 5 is going to be the braking. In 2003, 2004, the braking wasn't the greatest, but it was well above average for a vehicle. Was a vast improvement over like the GT and V6 brakes of the same years. But by today's standards, these do not brake well at all. I'd venture to say that even the Lightning stops better. That's not probably true, but it just feels that way. And that the Lightning doesn't have ABS, so there you go. Number 4 is going to be the IRS related problems. Bushing, there's so many bushings in the IRS. The way they came from the factory, the car felt kind of squirrely even going down the road. It felt like it was walking, like the back half was walking as well. I can't remember the term for it, but there's actually something the Cobra guys call it, where the back half kind of just feels like it's driving too, it's steering too. And the fact that if you don't keep up with your tightening your axle nuts regularly, like every oil change or so, they can back out. That happened to me. Right after we got this thing, the driver's side axle nut was loose and was causing the bearings to grind. We ended up having to spend like $600 back then to get a all new hub, because the bearing had wore out the hub as well. Had to replace the whole thing, get it aligned, whatnot. The reason I ended up getting the solid rear axle was because for the cost to go through and do like the full tilt boogie kit, and then also the driver's or the passenger side hub, the bearing was going out. To repair that, it was cheaper to just, I put this up on, I didn't even put it up on Craigslist. A guy in Mississippi, I did put it up on Craigslist as wanting to trade for a built solid rear axle. Guy in Mississippi also was trying to swap his solid rear axle for an IRS, which was built. So I was like, yeah, man, if you want it, you can come on, bring yours, and we'll just go even up. He had Mach 1 brakes. So it was a drop-in thing where he brought his rear end to my house. I had already had the IRS pulled out, swapped them. He went on about his way, I went about mine. And do I kind of miss the IRS? Yes, I miss the comfort and some of the handling on rough roads, but I don't have to worry about the solid axle. So the IRS, that's number 4. Number 3, well, I'm letting this car run right now because of number 3. Not really because of number 3, but charging issues. So main charging issue with these is that they tend to eat alternators, because where the alternator is, it's a V6 alternator, it's underpowered for the car, and it's put in a bad spot. It's low on the engine, and it's right next to the exhaust manifold. So one of the things that, especially if you have a like an X4 or any kind of device with gauges, you want to keep an eye on battery voltage, because like I said in my previous video, when I first got this car, it wasn't getting enough fuel. because the fuel pumps were being starved of voltage. The booster pump fixed that, but the alternator still went out, replaced it. So you got to keep an eye on that. Which is why, yeah, this thing's still running returnless fuel setup. But I've upgraded everything. You know, that it's got an upgraded hat, fuel line, fuel. It's got 4 improved GT pumps. But I'm also still running the booster pump because in case the alternator fails at watt, I don't want this thing running lean and melting pistons. So there's that. Going to, well, number 2. It's kind of, I'll go ahead and pop the hood. Some of the stuff is kind of a pain to talk about, but so, hold on one second. Sorry. Okay, so number 2, again, it's kind of a little maintenance problem. Intercooler pumps. So I've had the intercooler pump go on this car before. This has that ZZP one in now, if you watch my previous video, because the lightning pump went out. They're the same exact pump. They're a crappy pump. Everybody knows it. Everybody back then used them. You know, all the manufacturers did. But that's something that can just randomly go out, that if you aren't monitoring your IATs, just like your battery voltage, something can go wrong. Like if that goes out and you're in a watt pull, you could easily run too hot of an IAT and again, melt a piston, whatnot. So that's number 2. Because even though these are have built short blocks, built motors, they're not indestructible. They're, you got to have, take care of them. That's going to bring us probably to the thing that I love, that is the number 1. It's kind of it's really good. It's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. These things are a wild ride. That's a good part of it. The most exhilarating car, as I said in the previous video, it's the most exhilarating car I've ever driven. However, it also makes it the most, you could really hurt yourself with one of these if you don't know what you're doing, or you drive it in a situation where you shouldn't be. If it's raining out, you don't need to be getting on it. If it's, you definitely don't need to drive it in the snow and ice, obviously. It's not these cars are kind of at the status now where people don't really do that, but they kind of got to that collector status almost. But it's one of those that if you get on it too much because of the instant torque that they naturally have, even with the factory supercharger, if you get on it too much in a corner, you can find yourself wrapped around a tree or a telephone pole. So that's probably the biggest one by today's standards. They're, they don't have any nannies like they did before. Yes, they have traction control, but you can easily overpower that and wind up in a ditch. So that's probably my number 1, is how you have to be careful when and where you enjoy the performance that the car offers. So, anyway, next up, I'll be doing the 5 things I enjoy about it. Until next time.